There she goes.
157, Pete.
Nice. I got to tell you, the street, these guys at the street, these guys are loving it right now. It's pretty fun. You just go to the street, you go to investing, and bada bing, bada boom, there we are, sitting there just like as if, it's like the old days, John. I mean, here we are.
Folks, welcome to The Rebel's Edge. He's Pete Najarian. I'm John Najarian. Jared is handling all of the difficult chores like dancing robots, bulls and bears coming across the screen like that. Sound effects and so forth. That's all Jared.
Well done.
That might have been Pete. I'm not sure.
I had a little indigestion.
Folks, we break the show down into a few different parts, but we try to deliver you value in the 23 or 24 minutes that you've got. So we're going to get started with the Macro Minute. And the Macro Minute really is all still about the debt ceiling debate that is really not going to be a debate at all, folks, until they're right up against it. And then they either, after playing chicken, they either decide that they'll do some cuts or they won't. And those 5 or 6 members of the Republican Party are going to stand firm on if they won't give us cuts, we won't give them an extension. Biden will then do the 14th Amendment, which would spiral our market down by 15 to 20% between now and year end. That's my Macro Minute.
All right, I'm going to jump on it. I'll be done in 20 seconds. We are now seeing what John just talked about with that and what the effects are of the market. And what the effects are, we were at 15. We actually literally were in the 15s with the volatility index on Friday. Here we are at Wednesday. We hit 2081. Gives you a little bit of an idea. A lot of nervousness out there based upon this whole debt ceiling. That's it.
Yep, that's all you need to know, folks. You tune in somewhere else and have them yabber on about it for hours about it, but that's the down and dirty. Let's talk about this too, Pete, because a little down and a little dirty because crude oil. But crude oil is back up through 74 in fantastic futures.
Fantastic futures.
Terry Duffy, you only get that once.
Yep.
once a show.
We love you, Terry.
That's my fantastic futures, Pete. What are yours?
Well, here's the thing. You and I never discuss it ahead of time because we want to just have everything fresh and everything new and whatever. And that's exactly what I had, John. Here's why. May 4th, crude oil, $68. It was under 71 on Monday. Today is only Wednesday. Here we are, 74 plus. That gives you a little idea of just how rapidly we are seeing crude oil make this move to the upside. It's extraordinarily fast. And I'll tell you what, really, really interesting. Nat gas, we talked about that the other day. Right now, it's crude that's making a huge move to the upside.
Yeah. Well, that's it for fantastic futures. And Terry, we're not giving you 2, just one. Fantastic futures. All right. Let's talk now, Pete, about Palo Alto Networks.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to talk about it with Charles Payne yesterday. And then let's roll the tape and see what we had to say there, Jared.
Right now, I have a lot more data that I'll be sharing on TV with Charles about that. But overall, I think they're not pricing in enough, even though this stock has already moved up by better than 8% since the Fortinet earnings.
Bang! If you heard me on Charles Payne yesterday at 2:50 Eastern Time, I was talking about Palo Alto Networks, and I was saying they didn't price that thing correctly into earnings. Well, guess what? 206.50, baby. You want trades like that? I can get you a BOGO. Buy one, get one free. That's a month of trades, folks. Go to marketrebellion.com/bang. That's marketrebellion.com/bang for more trades like that.
Well, the reason we wanted to show you that whole thing, folks, is that many of you email or text Pete and I or hit us up on Twitter and say, how do I get trades like that? Go to marketrebellion.com/bang, and you can get trades like that because We publish those for our subscribers. Sometimes we get to cover them here on the show or with somebody nice like Charles Payne, who realizes the value of seeing those upside calls. We also emphasize taking profits. In other words, you can't trade just one way where you're always cutting losses, and then you're taking profits too quickly. But when you do have profits, you got to pull them off the table. And that's what Pete and I preach all the time. Discipline about both cutting losses and taking profits. Right, Pete?
Yeah, absolutely, John. And I'll tell you that Palo Alto, what a great move that thing had made. And you look at the earnings, absolutely crushed it. When earnings are up 83%, that's a pretty big number, right? You got revenue up 24%. You got billings up 26%. Across the board, they absolutely crushed it. It's why they hit a 52-week high today, well over 207. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of what John's talking about. You look for those kind of moves. He felt like the volatilities had gotten lower than they should have been ahead of time, took advantage of that, turns into an absolutely phenomenal trade. So it's exactly what we work for here at Market Rebellion. It's a fun thing. It's what we do. We're trying to uncover as much as we can. By the way, as far as Palo Alto, how about this, John? In their biggest deals that they do in excess of 10 million, they were up 136%. And then when you look at the other ones where it's 5 million or thereabouts, it's up 62%. They absolutely crushed the numbers in every way. It's why it hit 52-week highs on a day where the markets are going down, 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 down. That just shows you the power of Palo Alto.
Yep, a very strong report from them, and well-deserved kudos to anybody who got into that one. Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk, Pete, about what's going on with Urban Outfitters, because they have a bunch of brands, and they have experienced some very good numbers in things like Free People, up 17%, just that segment. Their gross profit expanded, that's right, expanded to 33% from 30%. So they're doing just about everything right, apparently, Pete.
They are. They're doing everything right, John. I mean, when you look at this and everybody else is talking about trade downs and everything else, these guys' inventories are just fine. As a matter of fact, they've managed to do a really good job of not having to mark down a lot of their merchandise to any significant degree, which is why you're talking about some of the numbers that you're talking about in terms of some of the profits, John. It's Free People, it's Anthropologie, it's Urban, it's all of them. Up 16% today and new 52-week highs. It says a lot about how they are executing right now. Not everybody, as we know, everybody else is talking about, well, they're just coming for essentials. Hey, they're cutting back on this or that. Not with these guys. Urban is absolutely crushing it.
Yep. And the amount of shares traded today, folks, tells us, Pete and I, that there were a lot of shorts betting against them because 8.7 million shares turning over today versus normal turnover of about 1.4 tells you that there's some people being forced to buy the stock, and those would be the shorts. Yep. Always better to own a put than to be short the stock, folks. But God bless all those shorts. Let's talk about PTCT, Pete. I know that you and I have talked about biopharmas a lot, but this one in particular, they're down 23%, might even be down more. I haven't looked at it in the last half hour, but they announced strategic pipeline what is this word, Pete? Prioritor. I don't even know how to say it. But they discontinued their gene therapy program. That's the important thing in the earnings statement. So whether you prioritize one thing or you dump something else, when you're dumping something else like your gene therapy, and that's one of the big reasons people own you, that ain't a good thing.
Well, and John, you and I talk about this all the time. We talk about phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Then you go to the public, right? And you get out there and they give you the approval to be able to sell something. Well, the problem with these guys is they also had a big stumble on phase 3. We talk about this a lot because you can get through phase 1 and phase 2. The next one's as important as anything is phase 3. It's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of money. Their free cash flow burn is absolutely extraordinarily bad. This is a company that I would not say, hey, look, they're overselling this thing. You got to jump into this. I would say the exact opposite. I would say, you know what? stay away. These guys have some serious problems when you look at their balance sheet. The shorts are there. You've got everything else that's playing in there, John. I would be concerned, so I would stay away from it. I want them to have success, but unfortunately right now, this stumble is a big stumble, and they have some issues in front of them.
Yeah, and one segment that people were really counting on to provide a lot of that, Pete, like I was trying to say, a prioritization, that instead of having something that they really want to focus on and bring in the revenue, they're getting rid of that segment. Mm-hmm. And that was where they were supposed to get a lot of the revenue. All right, let's talk about prioritizing Netflix, Pete, because Netflix, you have said forever that they should be doing away with these password sharing BS that they let us do. Now, we all love it. I get that. So this is one of those situations where if you own the stock, you don't want them doing, letting 5-6 people be on your Netflix account from 5 or 6 different cities. They might be friends, they might be family, but from now on, everybody's going to have to pony up a little cheddar if they want to be on this Netflix, Pete, from another city.
Yeah, and there's other ways that people can do something a little bit in the in-between space, John, and I think that's something that a lot of people are looking past that. I think one of the reasons why the stock actually was moving a little bit to the upside on this big negative day, it was a little bit to do with, hey, they're still going to get some money. They're not going to get the full ticket, but $7.99, you can kind of tag along, right? I mean, that's something big. They were talking about 100 million accounts that are shared out there. Those are extraordinary numbers. If they can convert just a fraction of that, John, can you imagine? I mean, at $7.99, let's just put that out there, a piece, and you get 50%, 30%, whatever. That's some big numbers to the bottom line. I think that's why you're seeing this stock kind of hovering around those 52-week highs. It's not there right now, but it's not too far away. They can see those 52-week highs right there in front of themselves. And I'll tell you what, there's a good reason why this company could very easily get back up, up, up and break through that level over the next couple of earnings cycles.
Do the math, folks, that Pete just described. So if you are somebody who has children or friends in another city that are using your account, you're going to be sent an email that's going to say it's $7.99, call it $8, if they want to stay on, or they can pay the full boat for their own subscription. If they stay on yours, you have to pay an additional basically $8 a month because they're not living in your house anymore. So instead, Netflix wised up and said, Reed Hastings said, you know what, Pete? I think we should charge these guys, like you say, $30 million households, for instance, times $8 is $250 million every month. Think about that. 12 of those a year. This is not a quarterly thing. So $250 million, 12 times a year, that's a lot dropping to the bottom line. Now, We'll see how much they get. Is it 5 million? Is it 30 million? Is it, like Pete said, up to 50%? We'll stick with it. It's still cheaper than the full account. So I think a high number will do it, Pete. And we've always said this is the move they should make. Well, guess what? They just decided to make it.
Yep. So far, the US and the UK is where they're focusing on, but those are some big numbers. All right, John, we're going to jump a little bit to the sports side of things. And here's an interesting one. You and I will have a fun time talking about this because there's a lot of different takes that a person could go when you're looking at this. I love the tweet that I saw from Tyrann Mathieu, one of the best defensive backs maybe in the NFL, maybe for a long time in the NFL, the Honey Badger, if you don't know him by his real name. The Honey Badger is an absolute freak show athlete. Here's some of the numbers that he got over the years, or at least accolades, John. He was an All-American. He was All-SEC, Defensive Player of the Year, Bednarik Award winner. He was an all-time defensive player for LSU. People absolutely think this guy's a freak show. He got out there and he said, I hate the portal. I hate the portal. He goes, what I learned most when I had to sit there on the bench behind Patrick Peterson and Mo Clybourne was I had to be humble. I had to get better. I needed to do a lot of different things than I was doing as I came in as a freshman. He said, I hustled harder. I worked harder. I did a lot of things because I wanted to be a starter and I wanted to be great. So I think that says a lot about what's going on right now, John. And I see both sides of it. If you're somebody who goes to a school and you have no shot at getting on the field, no shot, I think the portal's fantastic. The problem is there are guys using this portal now like, you know what? I'm mad at the coach. The coach really was on me the other day. I'm going to jump in the portal. I mean, really? Is that how we're going to act? We're going to leave and we're going to do that because of some sort of a skirmish with the coach or maybe some of the other players. Man up, guys. I mean, honestly, sometimes you learn a lot by sitting on the bench for a year. And that's the take that I'm taking. I think it's fine for guys to absolutely jump if they have no shot and they want to be on the football field. But for a lot of guys, it's not that they don't have a shot. It's they don't want to put in the time, the effort, and work with some of the better players. So I don't know, John. It's interesting, and I just thought it was provocative, and I love the fact that he was so out in front of this whole thing on his negativity towards the portal.
Yeah, well, folks, I'm going to share with you what Pete already knows, and what Pete just described, of course, is coming from a two-time All-American at the University of Minnesota. Where he spent his entire collegiate career. I, on the other hand, was a bit of a traveling man. So I spent some time, I went to junior college because I broke my ankle my senior year in high school. So I was recruited, not as heavily as Pete, but I was recruited to some great schools.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I broke my ankle and I didn't have any scholarships out there. So I went to a junior college. And I graduated from the junior college with high honors. I actually learned how to study in the junior college, Pete, something I didn't know too well from Minneapolis Central, even though they had great teachers. I just got through on my good looks, I guess. But I went then and I transferred to the University of California, Berkeley. Didn't find that I was going to play there because they went from a 4 linebacker set to 3. And I was a guy with only 2 years of eligibility left. So I said, nope, not for me. And I instead went to Cornell, which then I found out maybe I wasn't going to play at Cornell. So I'm on the other side of the argument that Pete made, except that I agree. If you're not going to play, which is what Pete said, if you're not going to play there, it's a lot nicer to not have to sit out a year. Yeah. Like one of the great players of all time, folks, Troy Aikman, Pete might have knocked him out of his game when
Got
he was
ribs.
Yep. And he ended up transferring because he wasn't, going to play as much, he thought, in the right system. Because a lot of people, Pete, think that Troy Aikman only played at Oklahoma. Where did Troy Aikman get drafted out of, Pete?
UCLA.
Yep. But he had to sit out a year. He had to sit out a year to do that. Now you can just jump right into the portal and you're eligible. As long as your grades are there, doesn't have to be a 3.0 or even a 2.0, I don't think, Pete. But as long as you have, as long as you're academically eligible, you can move. And so my hat's off to the NCAA for at least giving players that flexibility that I didn't have, that Troy Aikman didn't have. But I do recognize what Pete's saying and what the Honey Badger said. And so I'm not completely against what you said, Pete, but I do certainly appreciate a guy like me would have loved the portal.
I think, John, going back to you for just 1 second, there was a difference. I don't think you had the experience or understanding to look far enough ahead when you were making some of the moves you went from school to school, because had you studied it a little bit more and said, all right, well, and gotten a little help from somebody, which they didn't do back then, you could have said, you know what, maybe Cal's not the right fit because of this, that, or the other, right? I mean, so it makes some sense to me that what you're saying too. I think the argument is a good one. If you're somewhere where you just don't see yourself getting on the field, that's one thing. If you're just mad at your coach, that's completely different. So I'll leave it at that. All right, John. John Plumlee. Now, who is John Plumlee? The whole world doesn't know who he is. Many people would say, why are you even going to talk about this guy? I'll tell you why, John. This kid is a really interesting, phenomenal athlete. And I love what the coaches are doing at the University of Central Florida right now, helping this kid out to be able to live out his dream. He's the starting quarterback at UCF. By the way, last year, threw for 2,500 yards, 14 touchdowns, ran for 860 yards. The kid can run like a deer, and had another 11 touchdowns. So that's what he is as a quarterback. But he's not just a quarterback. He's also an outfielder on the baseball team. They have restructured the playing at UCF. They've restructured it where football's in the morning, baseball's in the afternoon. And oh, by the way, this kid also is very academic. He does all his academic work in the evening. So think about that. This kid is doing it all at the same time and doing it at a high level, John. Absolutely incredible. He's done a great job with baseball. Some of his numbers, here's a couple numbers. He's got 10 home runs, 32 RBIs. He's batting just beneath 300. I mean, he's really doing everything. And oh, by the way, on the same day that he was playing baseball with some of those numbers being part of it, he also went to the spring game. He was 10 of 17, threw for 236 yards for the spring game, the same day as he just came out of a baseball game. So it's just amazing. And I love what these coaches are doing to allow this kid to be able to do it. They've got private jets, they've got golf carts, they've got you name it. And they allow him to be able to play on the baseball team. And he's pretty much a stud there, but also on the football team. And academically, he's doing extremely well. So John Plumlee, salute you, man. You're really working hard. And I'm just amazed. And I think everybody is amazed at what this kid's doing, John. Can you imagine that schedule?
Well, and like you say, Pete, discipline. I'd take it right back to what you and I preach, what we said at the top of the show with Palo Alto Networks. It is about discipline. And I guarantee there are some days where even John Rise Plumley doesn't want to get out of bed and go hit the weights, go hit the running that he's going to have to do. And perhaps, travel a couple hundred miles in a bus, because not every baseball game he plays, I'm sure, are they getting onto a jet to go somewhere. Some of those games, especially in Florida, Pete, they're probably, a couple hour bus ride here and there to get those games in. That's discipline. Yeah. If you have the discipline to do that, you could succeed in anything. There's a lot of people, Pete, who think that college is really nothing more than just proving you could show up most days for a very, not a job, but for classroom work, and that you could meet a goal. And then when people recruit you, not for pro football, but then when they recruit you for a job, they know that for 4 years you showed up most of the time for that, and that you did a great job, and that you got, whatever you got as far as grades and all the rest. So I think that's one of the real important things is discipline. And if you ever want to be like Pete in terms of trading, or if you want to be like me, you've got to be disciplined, because this game will eat you up if you're not disciplined. But if you are disciplined, like Mr. Plumlee, I think you could be a success in anything. And my hat's off to him too, Pete. That's very impressive.
And by the way, John, he is a transfer guy himself. He came from Ole Miss, where he started his career, and then he got the opportunity. And Gus Malzahn, former Auburn coach, who's now at Central Florida, was nice enough to just say, hey, look, I recruited you before. I wanted you before. I want you again. He's got him, and he's allowing him to do what he's doing. And the coach is actually working around the kid's schedule. I mean, you just got to love the whole storyline from all the coaches, the baseball coach, the football coach, and the kid for what he's doing. It's amazing. And it is, as you said, you better be disciplined, man. Can you imagine that schedule? It's got to be awesome.
Yep. My hat's off to him. Yep. Well, that's episode 157, folks. In the books. We hope that you tell a friend about the show. We hope that you go over to the street, like Pete said, click on that investing tab that they have at the street, and then you can come join us every day on the street or right here on Market Rebellion Television, marketrebellion.com/edge. We'll see you tomorrow for the big windup of the week, right, Pete?
Yep. See you Thursday, guys.
Bang.